Yo, yo, yo. This is Candy B Knittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today I thought I'd talk about how I organize my works in progress. I'm going to do a little WIP parade for y'all and talk about how I structure my knitting time, how I plan my projects, and how I utilize my time throughout the week to get it all done. So my first type of knitting is I have work, I have doctor's appointments, I have driving in the car with my family. Usually Mr. Rulu does most of the driving, and so I always have a relatively simple on-the-go project. And currently that project is the Hooded Cowl by Rosann Fleischauer. And it is in worsted weight yarn. Last time y'all saw this, I was on the ribbing. It's quite a bit of 1x1 ribbing, and then you do a little bit of shaping for the neck area. It's a free pattern, by the way. And then you just knit flat and stockinette to your desired length. I am doing it shorter than the pattern because this is for one of my children. And the reason this works really well as an on-the-go / work project, like my lunch break type projects or very long meeting type project, is, like I said, it's a nice long ribbing, then it goes into a nice long flat section. There's not too many transitions, like into, now you have to do decreases or increases or, long pattern repeats. It pretty much goes on and on. I don't have to think too much about me knitting past the length that I need, and it's not the most exciting knit. I am definitely more of a process knitter. Like, I enjoy the process of knitting more than the enjoyment of the final project. And this is a very practical project. It's something I'm making for my children, and I want the final product, even though the actual process of knitting it isn't that fun. And so just by plugging in 30 minutes in the car there, 30 minutes on my lunch break, 30 minutes waiting at the doctor's office, eventually it'll get done without having to feel like I'm like slogging through it. Also, this yarn I'm using is called Mighty Stitch by Knit Picks, and not my favorite yarn. This is the Marina colorway, by the way, and a bit on the splitty side. It's mostly acrylic. Let me read it's 80% acrylic, 20% superwash, which I think is going to be great for my children because I can throw them in the washing machine, but also they get a little bit of the warmth from the wool, even though, because it is going to be a winter item. But that wool content, it's pilling a lot. Like, every time I work on this, I get like blue fluff coming off of me. So it's not the most enjoyable knit, but by having those little chunks during the day where I'm not necessarily thinking about it too much, it's good for that. The other thing that I usually enjoy working on when I'm out and about or on my lunch breaks are socks. But recently I've gotten on a kick of knitting socks for Mr. Rulud, and so my socks have become my TV knitting. And TV knitting is very similar to out and about knitting for me, where it's a very simple project. It's something that, once, yes, you have some ribbing, yes, you have the heel turn, yes, you have the toe, but there's, pretty large places, especially working on an 80 stitch sock for a men's 11, 12 foot, US men's foot. There's long periods of just straight knitting, and so I don't have to worry about, going too far or, forgetting an increase or whatever. And also I've gotten to the point with socks where I've pretty much memorized most vanilla sock patterns, and this is a vanilla sock pattern. This is Lion Brand Sockies, my favorite sock yarn, and this is the colorway Dark and Stormy. And so, like I said, this is for Mr. Rulud, and so it's become my TV knitting just because I'm a little bit more consistent with TV knitting, and I want to get through these socks as quickly as possible because this is something that he specifically asked for. With work knitting, sometimes, I'll forget my knitting at work, or I'll leave it in the car, and it's just, I'm not super pressed about it. But TV knitting, my TV is pretty much always right there, and we watch about an hour of TV together every night. And so I can be more consistent on this and get through it a little bit quicker. Also, I have access to Mr. Rulude's foot, so when I get closer to the toe decreases, I can start to try it on him and see how this is going to work. Like I said, this is a vanilla sock pattern. I pretty much know by heart how to knit a sock now, and I'm doing a short row heel, a German short row heel, because so far I have done a slip stitch heel flap and gusset for him, which he likes. A Flegel heel, which he liked even better, and so I'm now doing a short row heel, and this will be my last heel I'll try for him and see how he likes this, and then from there I can kind of just plug and play what kind of socks he likes. And so this is still the first sock, and so I've been knitting on this pretty much a couple weeks now, and I'll probably be done with this one in a week. And then usually what I do is, I have my cast on time that's separate from my regular TV time, and then be rocking and rolling with this. The next type of knitting I have is usually I have just kind of a big project I'm working on. Usually it's something for myself, and usually it's something that's a little bit more involved, something that's a little bit more technical. And for the sake of categorizing everything neatly, I'm going to call this my after school knitting. And so y'all know already what my big project is right now. It is my Night Nook sweater by Stephen West. And this top yoke is my hand spun. It's Polworth from Shirsty Cat. The black yarn is Patton's Classic Worsted. This teal yarn is Lovecraft's, the Cloudborn yarn, which I think has been since discontinued in the Lagoon colorway. And last time y'all saw this, I had just started with the blue on the body. I've since finished the body, bound off the done the ribbing on the bottom, and now I'm on my first sleeve. And this is my after school knitting because it's my kind of big main project I'm working on, so I like that, to work on it during the week. And there's lots of parts and pieces to it. So, Tuesday for an hour, I can work on this to, work on, casting on. Then, you work the increases, then you split for sleeves. And so it breaks down in nice pieces. And usually after school, I have my one daughter at home with me. She's usually working on her homework. She's relatively independent. And so it gives me time where I'm still decompressing from work, but it's not so late at night where I'm tired. And so it's a good time for those projects where I'm pretty sure of what I need to do. I have a little bit of brain power left. I have a little bit of focus time left in my day. But I'm not, trying a whole new technique or casting on a whole new big project. It's something I'm pretty consistent with. And I can work on the body, pretty thoughtlessly. I can just, watch TV all night long and work on the body. But now that I'm on the sleeve, I need that brain power just because I'm getting to, the pattern says to knit to 3 inches before you're ribbing. In the pattern picture, Stephen has much longer, like he knits his sleeves very long and exaggerated. And I do not like my sleeves super long. I like a nice bracelet length just about right here. And so I have to be very mindful of where I'm going to stop on this. And I'm still not sure if I want enough to be able to fold over my ribbing. And so it's a little bit more to think about. So I don't want to power through this sleeve. I could have had this sleeve done probably today if I had sat down and done it today. But I really want to be thoughtful about it. And also I'm striping and I'm doing decreases. I have to get down to a certain stitch count before doing the ribbing for the sleeve. So I don't want to just power through it. I want to spend time thinking about it. And so that's where I'm at with this. And, after I'm done with this, I'll be thinking about what's my next big project and swatching and all that kind of stuff. And so I always like to have just kind of one big project going, not too many big projects. My next project is, we've gone through the week, what I do at work, what I do after school, what I do when I'm sitting watching TV in the evenings. Then I have my weekend project, And the weekends, usually my kids get up relatively early. They want to watch TV or play with their tablets. They're pretty much able to grab breakfast for themselves. And so I am a morning person. I can get up at 6 a.m. and just hit the ground running usually. And so I really like to take advantage of that energy that I have on the weekends and do those projects that are a little bit more involved, things that are like brand new techniques to me, things that are require me to be at home because I have all my tools here, so I might have to stop and grab waste yarn, or I need a different size needle, or I'm running upstairs and downstairs grabbing things from the craft room. I really need that first thing in the morning energy in my brain to get going on the weekends, and also space to spread out. I can't do I can't take, this is my project, the Willa and Ellis Lions by Scrap Master Studios. This is going to be a lion eventually, just use your imagination. And this is my first time making a toy. It involves, at a certain point, you have 10 DPNs going. You can see I have like some scrap yarn here for the mouth. And so, at a certain point I had 2 arms and 2 legs laying there and trying to make sure that my legs are facing the right way, that my arms are the arms and I'm not mixing up arms and legs. So I need a certain amount of clean space for that, and also not too many noises and stuff happening in my ears. So this is a good first thing in the morning on a Saturday morning project. And it does not take very long. I did, each of the limbs, 15 to 20 minutes. You can do the limbs. Today I did the neck and the head, and I'm just taking my time because this is my first time doing a toy. The yarn is Kim Dye's yarn, and for the stuffing I am using I have some scrap Isaac Mizrahi yarn, and it's like this single ply bulky yarn, and I'm just like taking it apart and kind of floofing it up. And I'm using this because I hear a lot of people say with toys, using that white fiber fill, sometimes you can see through your knitting. And my gauge is pretty tight, but also, I like that this is, similar color. It's got this golden brown. It's very lion-esque. And so I've been kind of fluffing that up. I am kind of thinking, and that's what I also like to use the weekends for, is just thinking about things, because knitting can sometimes be so automatic for me. I'm just like going and going and going and not really thinking about what I'm doing. At a certain point, I'm going to take this waste yarn out and do the muzzle of the lion, so the nose and the mouth. And I think I'm going to use that opportunity to put a little bit more stuffing in the arms. I hear the big concern with toys is overstuffing, but I'm just nervous that it's going to be too flippity floppity. I don't know. I have to think about that, because I don't, my kids are pretty hard wearing on their things. And so, they could probably just like crush him or something. I don't know. So I want to make sure there's enough stuffing that he can kind of stand up for himself. I do have 2 children, so I'm making 2 of these. So at this point, I'm going to leave this one to the side. I guess we'll call this one Willa, and I'll start on Ellis, and I'll get Ellis to the same exact point, because at a certain point, I'm going to be picking up stitches for a muzzle. I'm going to have to make 2 tiny ears. I'm going to have to make an I-cord tail. There is a lion mane involved with this. There's stitching on the faces, which I'm quite concerned about because I've never done anything like that before. And so I think it'll be nice to have them both completely done and then do all of the itty bitty finishing things at the very end for both of the lions. I am, like I said, a process knitter, and so making a whole bunch of tiny things isn't my idea of a good time. So I also think putting it all together and doing it all at once will make things psychologically go a lot better for me. Also, there's 2 sweaters. There's 2 sweaters, and then each sweater has like a little pocket on it too. So it's definitely a little bit of a little fiddly, we'll say that. And so that's that one. Then speaking of kind of weekend planning projects, the other reason I like to have multiple projects going is because I can be quite impulsive on things, and especially in the beginning with my knitting, I'd be like, this is kind of bothering me, but I'm just going to keep going and see how it turns out. And 9 times out of 10, my first gut instinct was correct. And so having multiple projects allows me to still be able to do my knitting, but also kind of get space from certain projects. And so this is Kagan's quilt that I've been working on. This is in Hobie's Happy Place yarn. And I've been doing these little squares that I'm going to seam together, and I told y'all I really wanted a project where I didn't feel any pressure to go super fast, and I really wanted to plan this out because I bought all of these colors from Hobie. Let's do a little thumbnail situation. And so I really wanted to take my time making these. This is the first motif. It's going to be kind of like a star quilt motif, and so I did all these swatches with all the different colors that I bought. And this week I blocked a bunch of swatches and I just laid out the colors and really thought about where, and then white is the last color I got here, and I did a square with a color on the white background. It's very interesting to me how knitting is a verb, right? Like you are knitting, but the hobby knitting really encompasses a lot of different stuff that I'm like, I don't know if I would have taken up knitting had I known what knitting really was like. It's math, it's laundry, it's measuring, it's weighing things, it's dreaming things and imagining things. For me at least, you know, I could just take out a ball of yarn, just cast on 10 stitches and just make ropes all day. But for me, I spend as much time holding my needles as I do thinking about what the next step is going to be. So I really need that time and that space to block out my swatches. I actually realized this week going through everything and going through my bag that I've been knitting these on size 8 needles, which is fine. I'm happy with the fabric I've created, but I literally was 100% sure that I was using size 7 needles. And so things like that, having the space to really take a step back and look at what I'm doing is just as important as going as fast as I can to finish as many things as possible. And so this week I blocked all of these swatches, laid them all out, and now I have a very clear plan. I think this time around I'm gonna start making more squares, and like I said, there's no rush on this project, and that's why I have all of these other little things that I can be knitting on, because now I'm just like, okay, now I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start doing, you know, these are short row squares, and I'm going to do some squares with all solid, and then the solid is going to start to, and once I get a few solid squares, then I'll have more of a path forward. And I think after I do, because I wish I would have brought I have a printout of the pattern, but it's 4 different motifs in it, and this is just the first motif, and this is actually the most technical of all the motifs. The rest of them are kind of just stripes, and there's one that's a pinwheel, but this one I knew was going to take the most planning, and also I'm limited on the amount of yarn that I have, so I want to make sure that I get this one down, and then I can use whatever's left over to do some of the striping and things like this. But I need to know at least that I have enough that I can make enough squares to do this motif, and then whatever's left over I can do borders and I can do stripes and stuff in. So that's that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 works in progress. And so like this week I was like, something's missing. I feel like I need some, you know, like I said, 5 or 6 is my sweet spot, but I was just like, 6 is even better. And so this week I had a virtual conference I had to attend, and it was literally just watching pre-recorded sessions of people presenting facts about my job. It was a professional conference, so it was, you know, charts and graphs about the boring thing I do for a living. So I needed something kind of simple to work on, but I also wanted to feel like I was accomplishing something, because I was not happy about attending this conference. I was like, I need something that's gonna give me some motivation. And so last week I talked about my knitting goals, and one of my goals this year is to finish this secret crop by Jessie Maed. And one of the things I learned this year is I do not like knitting tank tops. Like, I love wearing tank tops, obviously, but I've definitely learned what I like to knit is different from what I like to wear. And what I like, the knitted stuff that I like to wear isn't the same as the shop bought stuff I like to wear. And so I love a good tank top, but I don't know if I love knitting tank tops. I don't know if I love wearing knitted tank tops, but I still want to finish this because obviously I have not worn this yet, so I need to wear it in order to form an opinion. And for this, I'm not a big like crop person, so this is going to be more of just a layering bralette situation for me, but it obviously needs straps. And I did depart from the pattern quite a bit. The original pattern, you can use fingering weight or you can use DK weight. Fingering weight gives you a more open, sheer fabric. The DK weight is more solid, as I've done here. I've done the DK weight because I knew I wanted to wear it more as a bralette. And so it has a lot more structure. And so the yarn I use, this is BC Garn Bio Balance held double. And so it's a fingering weight yarn. I held it double throughout the project, and the pattern calls for I-cord straps. I knew I wanted this to be more of a structured bralette situation, and I proportionately have a larger chest, and so I need a little bit more than an I-cord strap. And I was like, I want to try double knit straps. Like, I want the structure, I want the look. Y'all know I like my thick ribbing. Like, I love kind of oversized proportions. Don't know how to double knit, so I was just like, okay, I got this conference. I'm gonna give it a go. And double knitting is deceptively simple. Like, I had read it's not like I never looked into it before. I literally read the instructions, and if you don't know, it's knit one, slip one, and then on the wrong side, you knit what you slipped and slip what you knit, and you slip with yarn in front. That's the key, is slipping with yarn in front. The other key is that you have to cast on double the amount of stitches because you're slipping, and so you're creating a thinner fabric. And so I read the instructions and I was like, no way, it's that simple. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to cast it on while I'm listening to this guy talk about the state of the economy. And I'm just going to start knitting, and then if it starts to look like double knitting, then that means I did it right. And damned if this don't look like double knitting to me. I was just like, oh, that's okay. It's really that simple. Like, I thought, because I've done that before where I've read online instructions for knitting things, and the online instructions were incorrect. And I read it in books. I did everything. The only thing I didn't do is you can do more of a seamless cast on, but I'm sewing this inside of a top, so I really wasn't that pressed to do a proper cast on, but this is just a long tail cast on, so it's a little bumpy, but you can do a cast on that makes it smooth. And this is going to take a while. It's double knitting, so you're knitting half is because you're slipping half the time, so your fabric is only growing half as much as it traditionally would. I'm using 2 strands, and I'm doing them 2 at a time because I want my straps to be exactly the same length, and this is the only way to 100% assure that they are the exact same length, is to knit them at the same time. Trust me, I've learned this lesson the hard way. And so I got 2 cakes of yarn here. I'm pulling from the outside and the inside, and I'm just gonna go for it. And so this will be like maybe this will be, once I finish the kid stuff, this will be like my work knitting, because I also like working in really short rows, not to be confused with short rows, but the fact that this is 24 stitches across, and so I can get through this really quickly and not have to worry about, oh, the doctor just called you in and now you're in the middle of a row and you don't remember if you slipped or knit or not. So that's that. And so I really feel like I've got a well-rounded palette here, and literally the only thing I do is when I finish a project, I plug in a similar project. So when I'm done with those socks, I'll cast on another pair of socks. When I'm done with these straps, I'll find the next torturous tutorial to put myself through. When I'm done with that sweater, my plan is when I do something with my hand spun, to try to plan something else with my hand spun. That blanket is going to take a while. I just, it is what it is. After I finish my lion, I'll have another lion, and then next week maybe I will have something that looks a little less creepy. The other thing, obviously, I love to spin. I actually did some yarn dyeing today, some natural yarn dyeing today. I have, as I was saying before about knitting being more than just knitting, there's times where I have to pull out my Swift and cake up yarn, and that's an activity in and of itself. I usually save most of those things for the weekends, like pulling out my spinning wheel, that's on the weekends. Making bats on my drum cutters, that's usually a weekend type activity. I have, spinning in general is usually a bit more seasonal for me, and so every once in a while in the spring and summer I might pull out my drop spindle for a little bit, but now it's become a lot more consistent. And so what I've been doing late nights, instead of pulling out like a simple knitting project, is doing some drop spindling then, and then obviously on the weekends I'm pulling out my big wheel. This is my latest drop spindle spin. I threw some odds and ends on my drum carder, and I've been really just getting into literally doing the drop spindle thing. Like, now that I've caught on to it, it's like, oh wow, this is like something different I can do, and it's kind of like gives me a nice break in the evenings from sitting down all day. So that's that. How do you structure your knitting time? I know some people are very, buy yarn for this project, finish this project, then start the next project. Most people I know, though, are mostly like one project on the go, one bigger project at home people. Some people, cast on to their heart's delight. I used to be a very much like cast on a whole bunch of stuff and then finish a whole bunch of stuff at the same time. But I do find that anything more, like I said, than 5 or 6, I start to get confused and I start to lose things and I start to forget things. And so I like to have enough projects, there's 7 days in the week, I don't know. But there's something about it where I feel like I can at least touch on one of these projects over the course of a reasonable amount of time. Like I would, especially when I first started knitting, and I would get bored with certain things. Like I would knit, 5 rows in a blanket, throw it in a tote bag, throw it in a closet somewhere, and then be like, oh yeah, I was knitting on a blanket. What happened to that blanket? What was I doing? Am I on the wrong side? I'm on the right side. I'm terrible at taking notes. And so I feel like now this is a system that works for me. So you let me know in the comments what y'all do and how y'all plan out your projects. I hope this motivates you to do all of the YouTubey things. Subscribe so you can see if and when I finish these projects. Like, share it with your friends. You can hit me up on the Ko-Fi. You can shoot me an email, candibknittin@gmail.com. And of course, as always, the best way to see these finished projects is to go to my Instagram @Rulude. Peace.